This video is going to go over how to create your own self-booting CDI image file and burn it onto a blank CD to play on your Dreamcast. Dreamcast has a few different types of games, ones that are Katana based and ones that are Windows CE based, also ones that have added audio tracks and ones that do not have added audio tracks. This video is going to go over how to burn Katana based games without added audio tracks. If this doesn't really make sense to you, that's fine. It'll make more sense down the road in the video and you'll be able to tell what type of game that your backup is. I'll also be releasing another video in a couple weeks going over how to do Windows CE games, and once that's video released, it'll cover pretty much every Dreamcast game. Now what you're going to need is a blank CDR and the files I've linked in the video description, and also a complete digital copy of whatever game that you want to do this for. Now in Dreamcast terms, that means a GDI image file, which if you already have one, great. If not, then just go to Google and type in whatever game that you're looking for, followed by GDI, and it should be in the first few links. You could probably download it fairly easily. These are really easy to find files. So once you got all the files downloaded, we're going to jump to the computer. So what we're going to do is we're going to extract all the files that we downloaded in the link in the description. Now the one set of files that I haven't included is the Dreamcast BIOS. So that's going to be used for the Dreamcast emulator, which I've included in the tools folder and extras, and it's called null DC. We're going to use this to test our CDI image files that we create to make sure that it would hopefully boot in your Dreamcast. So I can't include this in the pack because it's copyright files, but what we're going to do is we're going to copy null DC right to our desktop and go to Google and download the DC BIOS pack. Once you download that, it should have two files included in there. So I'm going to open it up this, and it should be DC boot and DC flash. So those are the two files that we need. We're going to open up null DC, open up the data folder, and we're going to copy over the two files from the zip folder into the data folder. So we're going to select these two files, and we're just going to drag and drop. Now to select the two files, you could just press Control and click, and then you could select each individual file like I did. Now that we got our emulator set up, we're going to close these files and we're going to go back up to our case pack and we're going to install Python 2.7. This is going to allow us to run the programs that we're going to use. So we're going to open up the PC folder and we're going to install Python 2.7. Now once the installer opens up, we're going to install for all users. So once it opens up, we'll click next, next again. Now on this option here, we're going to want to install the entire feature. This is going to add an environment path to Windows. So select entire feature, next. I've sped it up, so it's installed. Now we're going to go back and we're going to open up the tools folder and we're going to install image burn. Now before we install image burn, we're going to extract the CDI driver files. So we're going to extract this zip file right here, and now we could open up this setup. So double click on that. We're going to go through, accept. Now if you want shortcuts, leave these checked on. I'm going to leave mine checked on just because we're going to be using it right away. Now on this screen here, you're going to want to copy this address. Now next, next, and now this will install. Now we don't really need it to update, so I'm going to close that. Now to install the driver files that we need, we're going to open up another Windows browser and we're going to edit the address by right clicking, and we're going to paste the address we've copied, press enter. And this is where ImageBird has installed, and all we want to do is drag and drop the files inside this folder. So we're going to drag and drop. Now you might get prompted that you need permission to do so. Just click continue. For me, I didn't, so it just copied right over, probably just because we just installed it. Now image burn is set up to burn CDI image. So now that we have image burn all set up, we're going to now install ISO Buster. So we're going to go back to the case pack, and we're going to go back to tools, and we're going to go to ISO Buster. And all we got to do is double click on the installer here. Okay. Accept the agreement. Next, next, next. And away we go. So now that that's done, we don't really need to launch it right away because we're not going to be using it right away. We'll close the thank you screen. So now that we got our PC all set up, we're going to go over the Dreamcast games. So I've copied all mine to the desktop here, and I've included all the different types of games that we have. So these here are already self-booting image files. You'll see that they're CDI files. Now if you've already got that, you could take that and burn that with image burn right now. So all the other folders are GDI dumps. So we're going to take a look at Crazy Taxi. So this is a Katana game without CDI images. You can see there's only 4 files. So we're going to open it up with Image Buster, the GDI file. And we'll take a quick look at that. So you can see how it looks on this side of the screen. What we'll do is right click and do a sector view and make sure that the top part here is at 4500. And we'll take a look on our right hand side, and you can see that it says first read bin here and Sega Katana. So you don't see any other audio tracks here. There's only 3. So this means it's a Katana game without added audio tracks. So now we're going to take a look at Grand Theft Auto, and you can see there's more files here. So we're going to open it up with ISO Buster, and you can see there's more than 3 audio tracks. So we'll open it up with a sector view by right clicking and make sure it's at 4500, and you can see that this is Sega Katana and it says first read bin. So this is a Sega Katana game with added audio tracks. So this won't work fully with this method. Now we're going to go to Sega Rally 2, and you can see that this has a whole bunch of added audio tracks, and if we take a look at the sector view, it'll say instead of first read bin, it says Windows CE over here. So that means it's a Windows CE based game and it has audio tracks. So I'll cover this in a different video. Now you could still use this method, but it just won't have any audio when you go to play the game. So I'm going to do House of the Dead because I just did Crazy Taxi. So as you can see, it has 3 audio tracks. That means it's a Katana game with no added audio tracks. Or actually, now we know it's a Katana game because it has first read bin. So this is the game that we're going to be working on. So what we want to do is extract all the files in it, because a lot of it is just fluff. So GDI images are usually a gig. So what we're going to do to extract is we're going to open up the pack, go to tools, and then we're going to go to GDI tools. We're going to run this as administrator. So right click and select run as administrator, and then we're going to open up the file. So I've got it right on my desktop. So I'm going to click desktop, Dreamcast games, House of the Dead 2, and you can see it's the only file. So we're going to double click that, then tools, and extract all. Everything looks good here. We're going to tell it where we want to extract it to. So in the Dreamcast pack, I've included a folder called GDI. That's where we want to extract it to. This should only take a couple seconds. Now again, we have to extract it to the GDI folder in the case pack. So we're going to close all that. open up the GDI folder, and you can see this is our extracted files inside the data folder. And then if we go back, it also extracted an IP bin file and a sort text file. So everything else in this folder was already here, and these are the programs that we're going to be using to modify and compile our CDI image folder. So the IP bin is the boot sector, the sort text is how the games or files are going to be sorted, and the data is all the files in the game. So we're going to open up that, and we could delete the very first file because it's useless on a CD because it won't even play on a Dreamcast. And then we're going to copy over the first read image, and we're going to drag and drop that to the GDI folder. So we'll copy that right over. I just like to drag and drop. And then we'll go back, and you can see first read is in there. That's a bin file as well. That's what the Dreamcast points to, the boot first when it reads the CD, and the IP tells it to do that. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to compress all the files that are AFS on our Dreamcast game. We're going to do that with AFS compactor. Now for this kind of game it doesn't seem like it's much, but on other games you're going to have to do a lot of trimming because you're going to have to get it to fit onto a CD. So you're going to see here we're going to select our data folder in the GDI folder in the case pack, and you can see it shrunk 17 files. Now this ended up only being a few megabytes, but on bigger games this will add up, and you're going to see why down the road. So now that we've compressed all our things, we're going to open up the IP for Win, and we're going to select the IP bin, and we're going to make sure VGA is selected, Sega OS is selected, and we're going to select the other two regions. Once everything's selected like it is on the screen, we're going to click patch. Now once it's patched, we're going to click it. You won't be able to tell, it won't tell you it's done anything, but we'll just close it and open it up again, and you can see all the settings that we just clicked are already set. So that worked out. We're going to close that, and now we're going to open up the CMD text file I've made. So these are just all the instructions that you could just copy and paste pretty much into your command prompt. So we're going to open up command prompt by typing in CMD into the start menu, and we want to run it as administrator. Now first things first is we want to change the working directory that we're in. So you see we're in system 32 right now. So what we want to do is we want to copy the address of the GDI location. So we're going to copy address as text, right click, and then we want to go all the way back to the very beginning of the line by pressing home, type CD, and then press enter. And you can see that we've changed the working directory. Now again, this may not make sense to you, but that's what we just did. Now all we have to do is just follow the steps. So we're going to copy the DAHAC. So we just copy this line, and then we're going to paste it into the command prompt and press enter. So this is going to change the LBA to 11,702. That may not make sense to you, but that's what we just did. So once we press enter, we're going to type in bin hack. So you can see we could just copy that right here. I'll edit that so first read will be returned. So bin hack 32, press enter. Now we want to type in first read bin, copy that, right click, enter, and then finally IP bin. or not finally, I guess. Right click. And again, this is now changing or patching our IP bin and our first read bin so they recognize each other. So there we go. So this created a new IP bin for us. So now we've patched first read bin in the first step, and now we've patched IP bin in the second step. So now we're going to open up the dummy program, and we want to navigate to the data folder. So we're going to double click data and open. So this is going to create a dummy file that is actually going to help our Dreamcast game load faster. So we're going to call it in all capital letters dummy.dat, and we're going to save that in the data folder. Now we want to change this to bytes, and we got to do a little bit math to figure out how big we want to make this. So what we want to do is find out how big our CD is. So we're going to move first read bin or first read.bin back into the data folder, and we're going to right click and we're going to go to properties and find out how many bytes the folder is. So you can see it's written right here. So we're going to drag this to the side for convenience, and we're going to open up a calculator. So this is how big a full CD, which is 80 minutes, which I'm assuming is the type that you have. If you have 70 minutes, you're going to have to use a different formula or just skip this step. So I've copied how many bytes a full CD is, which is what we want the Dreamcast game to look like, and then we're going to minus how many bytes it actually is based on our properties. So we're going to type that all in, and then we minus the two from each other, and now we got this number here, and we're going to copy it over to the file size. So this just fills up the CD so it has no empty space, and it rearranges the CD so that it loads faster. Now I could explain in more detail probably in the next video why we do this. You don't need to do it, but it will definitely speed up the loading times on your CDI image in the end. So now that that's finished, you're going to see we want to add that file on the sort text. So you can see every file is listed, and then the number at the end is what order it is in the list. Now we want this file to be added, so we're going to put data slash and then the name of the file, which is dummy in all capital letters .dat, and then it's going to be the 37th file. And there we go. So you want to save that. So once we got that saved, we're going to close out the file here, and now we're pretty much at our final step, which is creating our own ISO image. So we're going to open up the command folder or the command text file, and you can see this final command I've got in brackets here, title. Now I'm going to type in House of the Dead 2 because that's the name of the game that I want to use. If you're using a different game, just type in abbreviated version, but don't have any spaces in it. Now I like to leave it all capital letters because this is what the CD is actually going to be named. So now that you got this edited, we're going to copy this line and we're going to paste that into our command prompt. So we'll paste that and press enter, and you'll see it'll slowly, or fairly quickly actually, compile a new ISO image. Now this ISO image doesn't have the IP boot sector in it yet, but you'll see it's about 700 megabytes, which is perfect. So now we want to do the final step, which is DC insert. So we'll copy this line and we'll paste that into the command prompt, right click, enter. So DC insert is a program where no errors is good. So if you see nothing and it just returned right back to you, that means everything worked out great. So we'll close down, or we're going to copy the final line over. So again, what you got to do is edit this final part in the brackets. So we're going to call it House of the Dead 2, because that's the name of my game, .cdi. Now it has to be .cdi, but you can name it whatever you want. And we're going to copy this over to the command prompt. So once we press enter, it'll start compiling your own self-booting CDI image file. So this will take a few minutes to complete, but once it's done, what we want to do before we burn it onto a blank disk is test it in our emulator. So we're gonna, we might as well just close this. We won't need command prompt anymore. And we could close this text file. We don't need to save any of the changes. And what we can do is we can open up null DC, and we're going to open up the program, which is this one right here. And now we want to do normal boot, and we're going to jump to our CDI image file. So what we'll do is browse, go to the GDI folder, and do the House of the Dead that we just created. So far so good. That's the main boot screen of the Dreamcast, and now it should be loading first read bin, which so far so good, and now it should be loading our game, and there we go. So far it's looking like this will boot on a Dreamcast. So we will close out this emulator here, or if you want to try playing it, go right ahead. It's a little bit hard with just a keyboard, but feel free if you want to. But we'll close that up, and now we feel fairly confident that this will actually boot. So we're going to pop in a blank CD. You can see that just registered in the computer there, and we're going to open up ImageBurn. Now again, if you had a CDI image file from the very beginning, that sort of sucks, because all you have to do is click write to image or write image, and we're going to open up where we created it. So oops, I should go to GDI, and you can see House of the Dead right here, and we're going to drag and drop right onto ImageBurn, and you want to go at the slowest speed possible. So for my CD burner, that's at speed 10, but it'll automatically reconfigure itself to that speed. I always unclick the verify box just because my CD burner is on a laptop and it doesn't reinsert itself once it ejects. But this takes me about 10 minutes to complete, so I fast forwarded a little bit. So once that's done, we're going to jump right to our Dreamcast. So we're going to close everything up here, and what we'll do is plug in the Dreamcast and boot that thing up. Now you don't need to do anything special, there's no swap trick or anything, just put it in, turn it on, and we will watch and see. I got my fingers crossed. Now I'm going to close the top, and the disk is being checked. So far, so good. We'll open up play, and we're going to see if it'll launch the game. So it's on the main boot screen, which is good. Now it's going to jump to the first read bin. And let's see if it'll jump to it. And so far so good. Sometimes it'll hang up on that screen, but so far so good. So in the next video I will cover how to convert your audio tracks and burn those onto it. and then you'll also be able to cover Windows CE games as well. So this is a fairly complicated process. A lot of the tutorials are really out of date, so hopefully this helped you. If it did, like and subscribe, and stay tuned. I'll have some more Dreamcast videos coming up.